I am Ruthanne Voss, 70 years old this winter, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who sets the table. My hands know the weight of every plate, the way each spoon catches the light. Habit feels like safety when the house fills with voices and perfume, and the sound of my daughter giving orders she calls suggestions. Thanksgiving had always been mine to prepare, though lately it felt more like work I had been allowed to keep. Livia insisted on hosting this year, but it was my dishes she used, my recipes, my name on the family traditions. I told myself that helping was a kindness, that staying useful was a way to stay close. She stood near the kitchen doorway, her phone raised, smiling that bright, practiced smile she uses for clients. I didn't notice the red light until she said, "Look at Mom doing what she does best, serving." Laughter rolled through the room, the kind that tightens the air. My grandson tried to hide his grin behind a soda can. Livia's husband chuckled without looking up from the carving knife. My fingers trembled, so I steadied a spoon on the tablecloth until the shaking stopped. 14 seconds. That was how long it took for her to film me, post it, and watch the reactions appear: hearts, laughing faces, comments from people I barely knew. I could hear her reading them aloud as if they were blessings. My chest felt hollow, but my voice stayed calm when I said, "The gravy's on the stove. Don't let it scorch." Then I picked up my purse from the chair, still dusted with flour, and walked out the front door. The wind off the marsh was sharp and clean, carrying the faint smell of rain. I walked to the end of the block before realizing I had left my coat behind. It didn't matter. My hands were warm from holding myself still too long. By the time I reached my little cottage, my phone was buzzing with notifications tags, mentions, a string of emojis that meant nothing at all. I set it face down on the counter and stood there in the quiet, listening to my own breath steady. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would start washing the laughter off my name. I did not sleep that night. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that lets every old thought climb back up from where you buried it. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Livia once did her homework, tapping her pencil and sighing when I told her to keep going. She used to call me her anchor. Later, she called me her safety net. Somewhere between those names, I became her cushion. The memories lined up without mercy. The first time she overdrew her credit card, she came to me in tears. "It's only $600. Mom, I'll pay you right back." I covered it before the bank charged her a fee. She never mentioned it again. Then came the year her real estate business faltered. Just until closing, she'd said, sliding the property tax notice across my counter, "You've got savings." I wrote the check, telling myself it was family helping family. When her husband lost his job, I watched her 2 boys for weeks so she could regroup. She said thank you once over text, then asked if I could keep them another weekend. I used to believe that helping kept us close. Maybe I just feared what would happen if I stopped. The words of my husband drifted back, soft and steady, the way he spoke when he knew I wouldn't want to hear him. "Keeping peace isn't the same as keeping love, Ruth." I'd nodded back then, pretending to agree. He'd been gone for nearly 10 years, and still the truth sounded fresh enough to bruise. Outside, the streetlight hummed faintly, and I could see my reflection in the window, older, smaller, but finally clear. I picked up my phone, saw the frozen image of myself on Livia's video, and whispered, "That's enough." For the first time in my life, I meant it. Morning came gray and slow, the kind that feels like it's waiting for permission to begin. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the screen too bright against the dull light. The video played again, 14 seconds. My hands folding napkins, the sound of laughter swelling behind me. I muted it, but the words beneath stayed burned into the frame. Mom's doing what she does best, serving. There were comments now. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years wrote, "Classic Ruthanne, always keeping busy." Someone else added laughing faces. It wasn't cruelty meant for strangers. It was the kind that blooms inside families. The kind that expects forgiveness because of blood. When the doorbell rang, I almost ignored it. Nora's voice followed a soft knock. "It's me, hun." I brought coffee. I let her in. She took one look at my face and set the cups down without a word. For a while, the only sound was the faint buzz of my phone. She nodded toward it. "They calling Livia. Mostly." I said, "No apologies. Just questions. She wants to know why I left." Nora pulled out a chair. "You don't owe them your grace anymore." The words settled between us like warm air. I didn't cry right away. I just kept looking at the coffee steam rising between us until it blurred my vision. When I finally did, it was quiet, small, tired tears that didn't shake my shoulders. After Nora left, I stayed at the table with a pen and a stack of notepaper. The first page read, "Things I've never said." I wrote in small. Even lines, sentences meant only for me. That Livia's voice could still make me feel 12 years old. That I'd rather be alone than laughed at. That kindness without respect is just obedience. By nightfall, my phone had filled with messages again. "Mom, you're being dramatic. Call me back. We need to talk." I turned it over. Face down. The screen went dark. And the house finally felt still. The dawn came pale through the blinds, thin lines of light cutting across the counter. I had fallen asleep in the armchair with a blanket still around my shoulders. The first sound I heard wasn't birds or traffic. It was my phone buzzing against the table. A message from Livia. "Why can't I use my card?" No greeting. No apology. Just the tone of someone who had forgotten how to ask. Only how to demand. I stared at the words for a long minute. Then reached for the folder I'd started the night before, the one labeled Proof. Inside were bank statements, old joint accounts, and a list of every withdrawal that had come from my savings for emergencies. Every emergency had her name on it. I opened my laptop and logged into the bank. The balance glowed at me familiar numbers, but this time, they felt like mine again. I transferred every remaining cent into a private account under only my name. A small pop-up asked, "Are you sure you want to close this account?" "Yes," I said aloud. My voice sounded steady, almost new. Another buzz. "Mom, the joint card's frozen." "What's going on?" I typed slowly. My fingers calm. "Ask your servant." "Honey," for a moment. I just looked at the sentence sitting there on the screen. Simple, almost polite. Then I pressed send. The bubbles appeared right away. "Are you serious? What's your problem?" "I need that money for bills." I placed the phone face down on the counter and made coffee. The smell filled the room, warm and grounding. I added cream, sat at the table, and listened to the quiet. When I lifted the cup, my hands didn't shake. The silence around me didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt earned. The screen blinked again. Another message lighting the dark surface. But I didn't reach for it. I sipped slowly, letting the warmth spread through my chest. It wasn't revenge. It was air. The mail piled up by the front door, a small mountain I had ignored for weeks. That afternoon, I carried it to the kitchen and began sorting through envelopes. One by one. Most were the usual catalogs. Coupons, a reminder from the water company. Then 2 letters caught my eye, crisp, official looking, each addressed to me from banks I'd never used. Inside were statements, minimum payments, interest charges, late fees, balances I didn't recognize. Both accounts carried my full name, even my address. Only the signatures were wrong, an imitation of my handwriting, careful enough to fool a clerk, careless enough to betray itself. I sat down hard. The room seemed to tilt for a moment. Nora's husband, Daniel, stopped by later to fix a loose outlet. He found me still at the table. Papers spread like fallen leaves. Everything all right? Ruth, not exactly, I said, sliding the envelopes toward him. These say I owe over $6,000 to cards I've never seen. He put on his glasses, scanning the pages. Do you think, Livia, I know she did? I said quietly. I just need proof. He nodded once. The kind of nod that means business. Let's print your credit report. See what else is there. At his house, he showed me how to log in online. 3 reports loaded side by side. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I hadn't realized my name could exist in so many versions. There they were, 2 open credit lines. One closed for missed payments, all tied to my social security number. Daniel handed me a pen. Mark everything that's not yours. By the time we finished, there were red circles across nearly every page. The numbers stung proof of how far trust had stretched before it snapped, but something steadied inside me. For the first time, the facts were on paper, not trapped in feelings. I slid the reports into my folder labeled Proof, sealed it, and said softly, "This time, the receipts talk back." Daniel looked at me and gave a single, slow nod. Then it's time somebody listened. Cal Abrams's office sat above a dry cleaner on Meeting Street, small enough that I could hear the hum of the machines below. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of stillness that made other people talk more than they planned. I laid the folder on his desk, the one marked Proof. He opened it slowly, scanning each page, occasionally tapping his pen against the margin. "You have strong documentation, Mrs. Voss," he said finally. "Dates, statements, even copies of the signatures. This helps a lot." My throat felt tight. I never thought I'd need proof against my own child. He looked up, steady but kind. "It's not proof against her, it's proof for you." He explained what to do next. File identity theft reports. Freeze my credit. Request investigation numbers from each bureau. His voice was calm, procedural, the tone of someone who knew the difference between panic and process. When he turned the screen toward me, I saw the first digital form. It asked if I was the victim of fraud. I hesitated only a second before clicking yes. By the time I signed the last document, I felt drained but clear. Cal printed confirmation pages and slid them into a new envelope. "Keep these somewhere safe," he said. "We'll submit everything today." "Thank you," I managed. "I don't know if this is justice or just paperwork, but it's something." He smiled gently. "Sometimes paperwork is where justice starts." Outside, the air smelled faintly of rain and coffee. I walked past a cafe window where a young mother was laughing with her children, their faces pressed close over a slice of pie. It was the kind of Thanksgiving scene people post online polished, harmless, unreal. I paused, hand resting on the envelope inside my bag. My reflection in the glass looked older, yes, but also lighter. Different kind of Thanksgiving, I thought, and kept walking. It was 2 days after I met with Cal when the second video appeared. Livia stood in her kitchen, hair perfectly curled, voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. "My mom's losing it," she said into the camera. "Pray for her. She's been acting strange, shutting me out, saying horrible things. I think she needs help." The video lasted less than a minute, but that was enough. By the afternoon, cousins I hadn't heard from in years had shared it, adding their own little captions. "So sad. Family first. Hope she gets better." My phone filled with pity I hadn't asked for. Nora came by after dinner, holding a grocery bag and a look that told me she'd already seen it. "She's twisting the knife." "Ruth?" she said softly. I nodded. keeping my voice even. She's trying to rewrite the story before the truth gets out. Nora sat across from me, setting down 2 cartons of soup. You could post your side. I could, I said, but she wants noise. I'll give her silence. I took a screenshot of the video, the caption, and every share with her name on it. Then I sent them to Cal with a short note. Defamation, harassment. Please add to file. His reply came minutes later. Already documenting. The next morning, Livia's number lit up my screen again. Mom, why are you doing this? You're ruining everything, I typed back. You did that when you hit record? Then I deleted the message before sending it. Some words don't need to be seen. They just need to be known. Nora stopped by again that evening, sitting quietly while I folded the last of the day's mail. Sometimes silence is a verdict, she said. I looked up at her and felt something steady take shape inside me. Then let's make it official. She nodded, her eyes calm, proud even. Outside, the night settled heavy and still, but it no longer pressed on me, it waited. A week later, Cal called. The bank finished its review. He said, both credit lines were opened with forged signatures. They're filing official reports. You'll receive written confirmation. I gripped the phone tighter. So it's done. It's beginning, he said. You did everything right. When the envelope arrived, I held it like something fragile. 2 pages each stamped. Signed. Dated. For the first time in months, the truth existed outside my own voice. That evening, Nora and Daniel came over with dinner. Daniel read the document slowly, nodding. They can't bury this anymore, he said. I'm not trying to bury her. I murmured, I just want it recorded. Nora reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That's what justice is. Ruth, a record that outlives the lie. The next day, I heard the news through town gossip before Livia said a word. Her husband had moved out. Someone from the real estate board confirmed her license was suspended pending the investigation. It spread fast. Small towns carry stories like pollen. By evening, she called. Her voice came cracked. Not furious, just small. You've ruined me, she whispered. I took a breath, slow and steady. No, darling, you finally met yourself. For a moment, I heard her sobs the same rhythm as when she was a child, pretending to be sorry after breaking something she'd never fix. I never meant for it to go this far, she said. It always goes this far when you don't stop, I replied, then hung up before the silence could turn into begging. I sat at the kitchen table afterward, the same table where this all began. The paperwork lay beside my tea, the ink still faintly fresh. Outside, a storm rolled low over the harbor, thunder too distant to frighten anyone. I watched the window pane tremble from the wind and felt something open inside me. Not joy, not revenge. Space, the kind that comes when a noise finally ends. I let it stay, quiet and steady, until the kettle clicked off and the world felt still enough to breathe again. The letter came on a Thursday, tucked between a gas bill and a grocery flyer. I almost missed it. No return address. Just my name written in a shaky hand I knew by heart. I sat at the table before opening it, the paper soft and thin from being handled too much. Inside was 1 page, a few short lines. I was wrong. I never said thank you. No apology. No signature. Just that the paper smelled faintly of smoke, like it had been near a candle or a kitchen fire. Regret, scorched around the edges. I read it twice, then a third time, letting the words settle where they belonged, not in my chest, not in my throat, but somewhere quieter. That evening, Nora stopped by with her usual knock. Mail, she asked. Seeing the open envelope on the counter, from Livia, I said. Nora hesitated. Do you want to talk about it? Not really, She said she was wrong. That's something. It's words, I said softly, not a bridge. She nodded and didn't push further. After she left, I went to the hall closet and pulled out the brass porch lamp my husband built years ago. It had been sitting in the dark since his passing, one small wire undone. Daniel helped me reattach it earlier that month. I folded the letter neatly, placed it under the lamp's base, and carried both outside. The evening air smelled of salt and rain. I turned the switch, and a warm glow spread over the porch boards. Soft and steady. The letter stayed hidden beneath it close enough to remember, far enough not to worship. I lit the lamp again the next night, and the night after that. Not for her, not even for him. For me, the light didn't forgive. It simply refused to go out. Thanksgiving came again, quiet and unhurried. The air smelled of cinnamon and sea salt drifting from the harbor. I set out 3 plates instead of 10, one for Nora, one for Cal, and one for me. The china looked different, with space between each setting, as if the table itself could breathe. When they arrived, Nora carried a pie still warm in her hands. "You sure you don't want more company?" she asked, slipping out of her coat. "I've had plenty of company in my life," I said, smiling. "This year, I want conversation I can finish." Cal brought soup in a covered pot, the kind that stayed hot long after it left the stove. "I thought it'd feel strange," he said, helping me ladle it out. "Spending Thanksgiving with clients instead of family." "Not strange," I told him. "Just honest." We ate slowly, the rhythm easy and kind. Laughter rose from the table, not loud, not forced, just enough to fill the corners of the room. After a while, I stood and reached for the linen napkin folded on the 4th plate. Beneath it sat a small card written in my neatest hand, for lessons learned. Nora touched my wrist. "You kept a place, not for anyone coming back," I said, "for everything that's gone and taught me something." The candle flickered, catching the gold rim of each plate. Outside the window, the porch lamp glowed against the cold, its steady light spilling across the railing. Warm and sure. Cal leaned back, his voice low. "You ever think you'll forgive her? I already have," I said, "but that doesn't mean there's another chair waiting." He nodded, understanding more than he said. After dinner, they helped me clear the table. When the last dish was washed and the pie was wrapped away, I stood at the doorway, watching them walk toward their cars beneath the porch lamp's glow. The house felt still, not empty, just right-sized. I blew out the candle on the table and whispered, "Tables feel lighter when you only set them for love." Outside, the lamp kept shining, steady as breath, through the long November night.